Yes.
that. So what I always say, if someone is getting to know someone on the app, online, you have a little chat, establish basic compatibility. Okay, try to establish if there is any connection between like value systems, if there are no huge deal breakers. For example, if a brother is looking for hijabi sister and she's non-hijabi, that could be a deal breaker.
Or somebody doesn't offer namaz, these are, or somebody, financially in terms of that they don't have the same responsibility, like you said. It's so, sad and funny at the same time is that if you're looking for a boyfriend, for a haram relationship, the criteria is easy to get like that. When you look for a husband, it's like so strict, so difficult. And this is why I now can see why marriage or marrying someone is so difficult, and getting anything haram or a casual relationship or maybe a boyfriend, girlfriend is so easy in today's world.
So let's just take correct knowledge, which is Islamic knowledge. The most blessed marriages are those who are simple marriages, simple wedding and simple marriage. See, some people take that part, like the quote of the most barakah is in simple marriage, they take it as a wedding. So they may have simple nikah, right? But what about marriage? Why we are talking as Muslims about honeymoon period? That's not even from Islam. What is honeymoon period? The whole marriage can be honeymoon period.
Beautiful.
You do
Aisha, that was beautiful.
Thing, you choose the right spouse. You may have early Jannah in this dunya.
Mashallah.
It is possible for everyone. Let's just not limit ourselves.
Yeah.
Let's not just think that we can't have the best. That a man can have to choose between 4 qualities in a woman. No, you can have one with all 4 qualities. She could be on deen, and she could be very beautiful, and so on and on. Let's not limit. Islam is not limiting belief or religion. So
Mashallah.
People take wrong knowledge from wrong sources, and yes, they overcomplicate marriage. How about if we made marriage so simple that instead of putting all the conditions on a man to provide and protect and give this mahr, which is impossible to get for majority of men, and for the sisters, how about we just start to build friendship after marriage? How about we ease in and develop connection over time after nikah? How about not putting pressure on both sides and parties? How about just saying one condition or 2 conditions and I'm happy and content to start the marriage this way? Why we burden each other with so many things that it's necessary, and then we give so much power to families, parents, extended families, everyone intervening, so people just feel cold feet and run away.
And very beautifully said over there, because I'm just coming to those topics as well, living with in-laws and all of that. But I think one of the most common one, Aisha, I got is that, like you said, if a husband, I want a man who is financially stable and he should be earning and stuff. But as soon as the question comes, would you be homely or homemaker once the children? Am I your servant? Am I your slave? That's sort of a thing come. Do you think it's because it's indoctrinated through social media? That's another aspect, or is it because this Western culture, or maybe getting a lot of education? I'm not saying that I'm against that, but don't you think that maybe living in a society like that, where we have a woman has taken role of a man and a woman, like if she's going to work after marriage, or maybe especially after children, is that she's taking the responsibility of the man financially. She's also giving birth. She's also looking at the house. So she's doing like 3-4 different things, whereas the man is only doing the man's job. So she's the more responsibility, as I would say, has come onto the woman. Whereas also the fact that I would say to a lot of brothers as well, even in the past, said, be a man, be the one who would take care of everything. But at the same time, some unrealistic expectations, some brothers said, has made their life a hell. They are working 9 to 5, then they are doing a taxi at night just because my wife wants a house, my wife wants this, my wife wants a holiday. So both sides have a little bit exaggerated in that way.
I agree. So I would like to make a comment from both sides, because I work with Muslim men and women.
Mashallah.
So from female perspective, I think it's again not having correct Islamic knowledge. Allah has blessed a woman with a specific role to play, and whichever role she plays in that part, in that season of her life, she should prioritize it. So if she's the mother, this is what she should focus on. There's the
Mashallah.
biggest test and blessing at the same time
Beautiful.
for her being a mother. If children are very tiny and they're dependent on her and she's breastfeeding them, and if it's possible and a man can support and provide and she's not a single mother, she should enjoy that role as much as possible. However, there is also an unreasonable expectation that women put on themselves, which is idealizing motherhood. Motherhood is challenging. This is why we are rewarded so much. Let's not idealize it, because this is where baby blues come. This is where postnatal depressions come, because everyone thinks, oh, I'm going to do these lovely things and cuddle with my baby, and that baby doesn't stop crying. That baby doesn't stop pooing. That baby doesn't stop vomiting. And then the reality kicks in and welcome to madness.
Yeah.
So let's just be real. It is challenging. You need the support. You need correct, and the right support network around you. Now, you as a female, as a woman, as a mother, you cannot put that all on your husband. And that's what many sisters, do in this day and time. Yes, social media has a huge impact. Other sisters, what they're going through. Some, they have extra support at home.
Like in-laws, living with the in-laws can give them a bit of support, but not everybody has that, has that blessing, like you said.
Of course. So what women sometimes mistakenly start to demand from a man for him to be a village.
Yes.
So it's no longer the case that even a child or a mother gets a village. Like it used to be, it takes a child to bring a child, it takes a village. That doesn't exist anymore. There is no more village. Everyone is struggling on their own. It's very individualistic. Even if you look at extended families, South Asian communities, Arab communities, we used to have very strong bonds and, live together with in-laws and would get that support. It doesn't exist as much as it used to before. So even that is not there anymore. People set such strict boundaries with the extended families that there's no more access to the support, because it has become so toxic that they only meet on Eid, so really that support network is no longer there. So what happens is she has unreasonable expectations of a man to support and provide whilst he's outside, but then when he comes back as well. So it's important for a female to understand and prioritize when it comes to finances, when it comes to education, when it comes to motherhood or being a wife, to find the right balance. In this modern day and time, many women will want to study or will want to work, and it's okay. And I always say, Islamically, where the woman is at disadvantage is when she attaches her whole identity to that one specific role. So for example, she is a wife, and she will be a wife for 30 years, and God forbid husband dies and her whole world collapses.
Yes.
Because all she knows is how to be a wife.
Yes.
So that's not from Islam. From Islam is you are responsible for your own actions. So you need to do your own thing. You need to be independent enough to take care of yourself, to know how to pay your bills, a man or a woman, to know how to get groceries, to do all these things. A woman should also know, shouldn't be dependent on anyone other than Allah.
If Allah, forbid God, if Allah puts you in that situation, you should know how to at least, handle that. Because even if your husband passed away or you're divorced and suddenly there is no support, at least that sort of a thing should be there. You said it very rightly. Another question.
So that's crucial. And
please complete that. And there is one.
Yeah, just from male perspective. Yeah, so what I wanted to say, I think with brothers, it's a different issue.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're confused and lost, and that is because women are lost. So we are very confused sometimes. And if a woman finds her purpose, her connection with Allah, her connection to different roles she plays, and she finds herself, so she knows herself, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm also an artist, I'm also a teacher. So you may have different roles that you can play to balance yourself out, not just motherhood. So if woman is settled and content and authentic to herself, she will be more likely giving that leniency and appreciation and gratitude to her husband, because she'll be content and happy within herself. Now for a man, if he's not confused, what he's expected to do is provide, not just financially, not just physically protect the house and the family, but provide emotional stability, that is, and spiritual stability of the family. That is his one of the main roles. And this is what I tell brothers first, that when you come back home from your work, this is where your main job starts. When you enter, that wife might have, emotional time, and she will greet you at the door crying or complaining about the kids, or something happened. You have to come back stable enough to deal with your emotions, right? But be vulnerable enough to accept her emotions and calm her down. That's the state of a man that's expected. Of course, he should find comfort in his wife too. It shouldn't be the wife is always lashing out and throwing everything at her husband. But emotional availability of a man, and it's a big topic. Everyone on social media will say men are no longer emotionally available. Now you tell me, if that man will be fully emotionally available, will come back home and will cry and shout and lash out at his family, that's emotional availability. Which woman will be able to take that? Women will actually move themselves away. It will be scary, because women are not designed to accept emotions of a man in this way. True. What we say about emotional availability is a man is vulnerable enough to say, you know what, that's kind of quite scary, you know, should we move to that town? I feel a bit on edge. So he can explain how he feels, but he's not lashing out. A wife doesn't have to fix him, doesn't have to, you know, correct him or get scared of his emotions. So there is a huge difference. So we need to understand the role that
the role and balance in both ways. And I think the way you explained, the viewers who are listening to me, they can relate to that. I think both from the female side and the male side. But a lot of the times, most common thing is that people face is that somebody is not even able to hold a conversation, or they start ghosting, or they don't even know what they want, especially on online apps like that. And one of the more thing is that a common question comes that, do you believe in Milad or not? Now, of course, it's a more religious, which sect you belong to, but I believe that we are narrowing our criteria so much, and then we complain, oh, there is no good rishtas available, there's no good people available for marriage.
I think the way I see it is personal preference. And if it was my client, I would coach, I would just say how important that is to you. Is this a deal breaker, or it's flexible? And I always question up to the level that they can make their mind up by the end of my 6 weeks coaching, and it changes drastically. The understanding they gain and perspectives. So if a man could marry a woman who is not even a Muslim, okay, like people of the book, okay, could be, for example, Jewish or Christian woman, right? If a man can marry her, would he not be able to marry a Muslimah who is celebrating Milad? There is a difference, clear difference.
MashaAllah, what a beautiful answer. What a beautiful answer is that.
Muslim.
And
yes, there are different challenges and issues, but it depends on you. Are you ready to face? Are you aware what challenges this may bring? Ideally, it's best if you're compatible, but however, people do change. We do not expect them to change. We do not marry potential. However, we can sometimes tolerate and accept certain things. Okay, so if everything else is fine and ticks all the boxes in that person, I would say give it a go.
Yes.
And what that will teach you is not necessarily will be your ideal and perfect spouse, but what it will teach you is something that you didn't know about yourself. So when someone goes through dating, through apps, or even arranged marriages or families involvement, whichever way they're going through, there will be lots of exposure. Your ideal spouse could be number 62. You'll have to reject 61. So how quickly or not you do that is up to you. You could be too quick to reject the right person, and you could go all the way up to 80 and your 62 is gone. Right? Or you could take so long with number 2 that you will be in your late 40s, 50s, depressed and lonely because you didn't get there. You didn't reject the people who were wrong. They were not compatible with you. So you have to find the right balance, how you actually pitch. Give people enough time. And this is why I say if it's a dating app and you meet someone online, you have a little chat, establish basic compatibility, have a call, because the call will reveal quite a lot. It could be someone's accent, fluency of English. It could be someone's mindset that you stood away with thinking, oh, we're not clicking in.
Or even
you're not wasting any more time there.
And even sometimes I think that's probably in our next session as well. But a lot of people say their caste system, or if he's not from my caste. Now, that's a very, very strange thing where culture, in some cultures isn't completely like, even for reverts, they don't even know that caste system or anything. But in from Pakistan, India people, or from different countries who have a caste system, they would say, are you from this caste? And only then I can consider you. Now, again, you're limiting yourself with that.
There are two sides of this. Sometimes, when even in arranged marriages, when people done that in the past, it worked. Because it worked, they used the same model, and that's value systems.
Yes.
So sometimes sticking with the same caste will work. And, if it's a positive result you've seen, or you've seen someone living through, you think, okay, I want to take the same bet. But what somebody else has gone through and worked for them doesn't mean it will work for you.
Yes.
Secondly, I think opening your options definitely helps, especially if you are the one who's been looking for a while. And, if you do the same thing and you will only going to get the same results, you need to change something. You need to do something differently. And that could be, your profile needs changing, your mindset needs changing. You need to address issues within yourself while you're attracting or keeping certain type of people who constantly, for example, ghost you. Okay, everyone at some point may get ghosted, because the people who do not have correct manners, who do not know how to communicate, don't take it personally as a rejection. It's just there's something wrong with them. They cannot openly tell you, you know what, we're not compatible, but I wish you all the best.
Yeah.
Not very difficult.
They would not just say that, and they would just ghost. Yeah.
Yes. So everyone will have some sort of experience, but if it's constantly you getting ghosted, you're probably doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And it would be good to have a chat with somebody and look at yourself first. What is it I'm doing that I'm attracting specific people all the time?
Yes.
So, there are some patterns. Once, you experience that it's no longer one-off event. If it's 2-3 times, that means it's a pattern. And for pattern, you need to break it. So you need to figure it out. What's happening? We need to tweak it, and then you go on again.
Mashallah, mashallah. That was a beautiful answer. I think another very important question is that age gap. Now, what should be the appropriate age gap? A lot of people ask that question, so I think I'll go straight into that. So what's your answer to that, to our brothers and sisters? People don't have answer for that, and they say, okay, my mom said this, my dad said that. What's your answer to that question? What should be the ideal age gap when you're considering someone for marriage?
Okay, the very quick answer would be, as closer to the age both of them are, as better it is. Now, we're not just looking at biological age here, okay? And depends what age it starts with. So if someone is in the early 20s, I would say definitely the gap should be as smallest as possible. Because from neuroscience perspective, we know the brain fully develops at the age of 25. That's on average. Everyone is also very different. So it is on individual basis. So some will mature quicker than the others, especially men. They tend to take longer to mature.
Yeah, I was about to say thank you, Aisha, for adding that in, because I have seen, and a lot of successful marriages, even from back home and in my own family, is where the age gap was about either 5 years or 10 years, even up to 15 years, where usually guys take the responsibility. I'm saying a lot of them, in my case, which I've seen, is in their 30s, whereas women are ready to be mothers or take the responsibility even in their early 20s or even mid 20s. So very beautifully said over there, that age gap which you meant mentally, not just the number what we seek.
Lots of factors, yes. Spiritually, mentally, physically, are they ready to take the responsibility of a marriage?
Yes.
Now, again, we shouldn't overcomplicate marriage, but certain readiness is expected.
Okay.
Then also, obviously, we have Sunnah example that yes, the age difference is allowed and there are exceptions. But again, you may have a man who would be in his mid-20s, late 20s, and a boy who is in late 40s. Some men do not mature and they can't take responsibility. Sometimes they have not done the work on themselves. They have lots of trauma, and that will, they will bleed on people they haven't cut.
Yeah.
They haven't cut them, so it's not ideal to have a huge age difference unless you can follow the Sunnah example. And we know that our Prophet, peace be upon him, was the best of the men. So if you can follow that example, yes, it could be a larger age gap, but ideally it shouldn't be more than 10 years.
Yeah,
and we are looking at someone who's in 30s, or 40s. Then the age gap can increase. But when they're young, Definitely, it should be just couple of years.
Yeah, mashallah,
difference.
that's a beautiful answer, and I think, of course, that question varies in answer because if two people have children or divorced, now when they are looking for a partner, that might be a different criteria or a different way they look. If somebody is looking for maybe children or whatever that time cycle is, they prefer somebody who's a certain age, and maybe somebody's in their mid-30s, they are ready to have children or a family. They might consider somebody in their mid-20s or late 20s. So as you said, I think that readiness, that maturity to take the responsibility is very important in that factor. Aisha, next question, again, another important question is that a lot of women would ask the question, I don't want to live with in-laws, or am I open to living with in-laws or not? So what's your take on that?
I think it's very cultural as well. So you have to take into account what family she's coming from, what culture she's from. Is that accepted, or it hasn't been experienced by her? And it may sound scary, it may sound controlling. Islamically, she has a right to have her own space. Now, whatever man can provide, that could just be you have your separate little kitchen and entrance in the house, like would be the first floor, the second floor of the house. You'll see in other countries like Egypt, very common. The families, they live together, but they're not quite together.
Even Aisha, in the same street where people are living quite close to each other, in the same street, maybe the house in the front or maybe on the side. I've seen that as well.
Yes, so the two sides of the story. Some don't want to live with in-laws, but some women will want their family very nearby, and the husband will not like the idea because then they think, oh, they're going to intervene. Why do you need them so close? Why you want them making all the decisions for us? For a man, this is like a threat because he wants to be the provider, the protector, and he wants to discuss all the issues with his wife, not 5 more family members. So I think it's very important to truly understand the reasons behind, and how the culture is going to be, how the family is of the female or a male. Because if they're very toxic and they're going to intervene, and like I said, there's a lot of codependency going on, it is better to be separately. Either way, your family, it's your little culture that you create.
Yeah, because
within the cultures you were brought up.
Because Aisha, another very important thing is that, of course, to some people, they initially are reluctant with the idea, but when they see the support, especially with the children, with their grandparents, they really start liking it later on. Because at the end of the day, some people, some women really struggle to then do everything by themselves, like for example cooking, cleaning, children, then taking care of the husband. Then she have to look right and feel right when the husband comes and give him the time as well. So overall a bit of support does help, but again, like you said, a bit of toxicity, or if it's too much intervening in the person's life, can be detrimental for that marriage. So striking a balance is very important.
Yes, I agree. And also to understand that some people do not have that support. I come from, Reverts background. So I would have appreciated, extra family support. Instead of sending maybe my children to nursery, I would rather have grandparents looking after the child. And it could be beautiful. But like I said, sometimes you have to set boundaries with family members, how much involvement you want. It's agreement between spouses. So this is not something necessary. You have to be treating it as a deal breaker at the stage when you are just getting to know someone.
Mashallah.
Get to know someone and the family very well.
So true.
You are marrying into a family. Anyway, you're marrying that one spouse, but for example, if it's a single mother, you will accept her and her children. If you marry, a woman who has very close and loving relationship with her mother and father and maybe some siblings, you will marry into the family and you will love what your wife loves, the people she loves, and that's from Sunnah. But you need to understand that it's not always the case that everything is so loving. So you have to set loving boundaries with the family without hurting them. You have to sometimes stop certain involvement. And the relationship between husband and wife is sacred. They're like clothing for each other. So you've got to keep that very sacred and private.
Mashallah, mashallah. Aisha, that was a beautiful answer. Another question, Aisha, is that can I work, especially with women? Can I work after marriage? And again, I think coming to the same point, this time I think I want to use this material for maybe as a marketing as well. So they say that okay, can I work, or and if the husband says, will you be a homemaker or homely? And she said, am I your slave or servant? And if you more specifically answer that.
We are the slaves of Allah.
Allahu
If we are
Akbar.
slaves to anyone, it's to Allah. And we're not slaves to our children, we're not slaves to our husbands as women. If Allah has chosen you and blessed you to be a mother, and you still want to work and you want to do all these things, and if Allah has blessed you with capacity to do that, off you go. Honestly, you do what Allah has allowed you, permit you, blessed you with. I've studied throughout my whole motherhood. From the time my children were born, when they were newborn, when they were toddlers, I've studied throughout, and I managed to do that because Allah blessed me with the ability to do that. Studying was the only thing I could do for myself to keep myself sane, so I wouldn't give headache to my husband. I would be a good mother. I would nourish myself through studying, reading, seeking knowledge, and that was my blessing. That was my outlet. Because as a mother, if you can study, I studied at home. So I found a way to balance and manage all different roles beautifully. Alhamdulillah. Not every sister can do that. So I can't judge for those sisters who are already struggling with motherhood and they can't imagine doing so many extra things. Sisters who already need lots of support, they need to embrace the motherhood and do something that's within their capacity. And if they still want to work or they want to study and they discuss that with their spouse and they can agree on that, choose something that doesn't burden you, something that will bring you joy. So change your intention. And if you find it difficult, ask Allah to increase your capacity to do something that you are able to do for yourself. So you don't limit yourself, but you're also a very good mother, a very good wife, and you could be doing something amazing for the community.
MashaAllah.
At the same time.
Yeah, but because of course, raising a child, raising a whole generation, and teaching them Islam and learning within yourself as well, you're shaping a new generation. So that's something really, really great somebody is doing. So that was a very, very beautiful answer. Another question again was the ghosting and about communication, but this time a little bit more specific. So Aisha, a lot of people feel like that on the apps and stuff, there's people ghosting them and the people are quite not communicating properly, or they cannot hold a conversation with them. What's the solution with that? Shall they just unmatch them, or shall I? But I think you did mention it last time that it might be if you're meeting people like that, if you're if a lot of people are doing that to you, there might be something wrong on your side of things. But specifically when you are on a hunt, or maybe you have a time 1 year to decide who might you marry or not, so what would be your approach?
Like you have mentioned, if it is a brother who's constantly getting ghosted, I would say maybe your selection isn't right. Maybe the women you select are quite toxic. It could be even catfish. You will get someone that's pretending to be someone that they're not. So you got to give due vigilance. Like I said, you got to be a system. You text not too long. There shouldn't be pen pals there, right? With correct intention. I want to get to know someone for the sake of marriage, and you only text to find and establish basic compatibility. Then it's a phone call. After the phone call is a video call, and then you assess. So it's like a moving image. Many people will not get to the stage of a video call. If the person passed that stage, this is when you meet
in person.
So see how many stages you go through. If you do not waste your time and other people's time, you'll get through more people, you'll establish more compatibilities, you will have better exposure, you'll get to know more about yourself and other people, what you truly are looking for, what are your deal breakers or flexibles. Things may change with exposure. So follow it the right way. And like I said, the correct manners, adab, is necessary. Whom you're talking to, you may meet that person in Asda, you may meet that person in one of the events, you may go to another country, and there was once a case that somebody ghosted somebody and they met them in Dubai. So you will have to face them. Allah may bring you to that person's face at some point, because this is not justice. This is not the right way. So you watch and fear Allah what you do, even when you are on your own on the apps, or and you think you don't have to do what you would do if family was involved or if it was face to face.
MashaAllah, Aisha, that was very beautiful. Another question, Aisha, is that again, the two questions which usually brothers and sisters say that when they go into the apps, these two questions are asked from them quite often. One, again, the Milad question, or do you celebrate Milads or not? That's come into what sect you belong, I believe. But and the second most common one is what caste do you belong. So in a specific way, what do you think people in that situation, what should be their approach?
I think just answer, Islam doesn't forbid having some kind of fun that's not haram, okay? So when you are talking to someone for the sake or purpose of marriage, doesn't mean you have to make it like a job interview that everyone is...
Or like a robotic kind of interview.
Yeah, the answering questions. Answer in a way that will be inclusive. So if someone will ask me, do you celebrate Milad? And for example, I don't, but that person does. I'll say, no, I don't celebrate, but I would welcome discussion around it.
MashaAllah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
You. Why is this so important? Is this aligned? Sometimes people come from a place of love. I don't celebrate it, but if someone else does and they have correct intentions, at the end of the day, they're accountable for their actions.
Same with the birthday as well. Aisha, you said something beautiful over there, and because I personally experienced these things, I just want to add something in it, is the fact that whenever I've gone with people into discussions, because mashallah I've studied different sects of Islam, the differences, and you won't believe that a lot of people said to me, maybe a certain sect it's a kafir. I said no, it's not, because they are in the circle of Islam. You only are out of circle of Islam if you don't believe in Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as the last messenger of Allah, or you don't believe in Quran and Allah. How can you say this other sect, which is maybe similar sect to Sunni sect or like that, and you can say kafir and don't listen to the perspective? Whenever I've gone into the details of discussion, nothing. No, I was just told to say that, or I was told to do that. That is very, very, very sad in that way.
It goes back to where you take the knowledge from. We know there will be 72 sects and only one correct, and everyone thinks it's theirs. But why don't we just embrace Islam, include all Muslims, unite them, pray together, celebrate the differences too, just accept it. Anyone's heart can turn anytime, because Allah is the one who turns people's hearts. If someone who is not a Muslim can become a Muslim, so someone who has a different belief one day, the next day may have a different belief altogether.
And to be honest, Aisha, I'll add something into it, is that the scholars, I've listened to a lot of schools of thoughts, a lot of scholars, and I've really beautifully liked a couple of scholars whose main ideology was that when Islam came, there was no Shia Sunni, there was only Muslim. Of course, later down the line, historical factors, other factors came in, imams and their interpretations. But we don't read the kalma of our imam. We need the kalma of the biggest imam, which is Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So these scholars said that they have studied different schools of thoughts, including Shia and Sunni, and they took the approach of Quran and Sahih Hadith. Now, if that Sahih Hadith is authentic either from one sect, second sect, or the third sect, you take it because it goes by Islam. A very small example is that even Sunni books of Hadith say that Zohrain and Maghribain, merging Zohar and Asr, is allowed. Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did that. Now, because Shia do that, a lot of Sunni friends say we not going to do that, even though some Sunni scholars do accept that this is a Sahih Hadith. So many aspects like that. Whenever I've gone into the conversations of these topics, I've found people to be, like you said, what was your source of information? Have you ever researched logically yourself about it? Or did you just hear it from one source and this is it?
Exactly. You need to have that flexibility and leeway to include people and truly understand the reasons behind. Because even if the action might not be the right yet, not polished, not perfect, but intention is good, you have to give that responsibility to them, because what it is that person will face the consequences of their choices in life, not you. So sometimes some differences are okay as long as you can live in peace under one roof. If you think you can't, and you know yourself very well that you'll be like cat and dog constantly fighting, then maybe that should be your deal breaker. So we have to consider those options.
MashaAllah, very, very beautiful answer. And like I said, I think as long as no shirk is there, as long as, like for example, I've seen some people, they go into such an extreme is that, okay, if there's a birthday in your family, I cannot attend that. Now, being married to someone and not attending a family event like that, you can imagine how it can play out in after marriage. So sometimes we become very restrictive to other people's opinion, whereas I feel like it's inclusivity, unity. Either you pray namaz by opening hands or closing hands, or do dafaya, then you're praying to Allah Pak. That's the main thing, and that is what I've learned from my scholars: unity.
I think one thing our Muslim community truly lacks is sincerity and being authentic. We allow other people and all the background noise to affect us. What will people think? Expectations of, their own family members. What if we lived authentically and we could embrace the contentment that it comes with? Because as Muslims, if we are connected to Allah and ourselves spiritually, mentally, physically, and we are true to ourselves, because see, our soul knows the truth. We can't lie to ourselves. So if we are honest and true to ourselves, and we know, if even I was to go to meet Shia Muslims, right, or Sufis, Sunnis, any different kind of sect of Muslims, they're Muslims. If I still hold myself as a Muslimah, the way Allah wants me to present myself, doesn't mean I become Shia. Doesn't mean I become Sunni if I'm Shia. That doesn't mean anything. I'm just inclusive, I'm tolerant, I'm respectful. So take off all responsibility and expectation, of society, how you should be behaving. Do what is true to Allah, to yourself.
Like you said, if you can embrace somebody by the book, if you really love someone, a Christian or a Jew, if you want to get married, why not just listen and communicate with someone who's from the same maybe religion or caste or culture, but just have a little bit of difference of opinion? Why rejecting them only on the basis of that? And secondly, I'm very much against this judgment of saying somebody kafir. That's not a Muslim's job to do that. Allah knows who's what, and Allah will be the judge of that. But of course, from a technical perspective, if the basics are there and nobody's denying that, okay, I don't believe in the last messenger of Allah, then you can say, or maybe they have another prophet after they claim that that's their another prophet or last prophet, then that's physically you can say, okay, maybe they are not part of Islamic circle. But on a small difference, like, okay, he reads namaz by opening his hands and saying them kafir, astaghfirullah, where have we gone with our tolerance? Where have we gone with our tolerance?
I agree. I think even when it comes to the prayer, okay, there is one thing I always discuss, especially when I deal with reverts who are learning how to pray and they take time. And we know Islamically that prayer is what differentiates between Muslim and non-Muslim, but there are lots of exceptions to that, lots of exceptions. If someone is physically and mentally really struggling, they can't get up to brush their teeth, they may struggle to pray too, right? Even if they would be praying in the bed. Now you're saying that person who's truly struggling, who's maybe depressed or clinically really ill, right, will not be counted as Muslim. I doubt it, because if that person still believes in Allah, even if the prayer is neglected, for example, someone could be oppressed or abused, going through domestic violence, and they don't pray or stop praying or have not prayed for a few days, that doesn't take them out of Islam, because they have a reason for that. So it's not just black and white. There are lots of exceptions. There are people who may not pray all the time, but they may pray one prayer. They do their best, however they do it. I'm not saying this is right, but I'm saying this is the real life that we have to face and understand, that we have to work with people on the spiritual level equally as we work on the physical level. If someone breaks their leg, we gradually increase the physical activity. If someone spiritually is struggling to pray, we gradually increase the spiritual activity too. So from one prayer, okay, let's do that every day, and now let's do 2 prayers, 3 prayers, and so on. Help them, and boost them up. So that doesn't take them out of Islam. We can't call them kafir because of this.
Because of this, mashallah, such a beautiful thing. And I'm going to say to my viewers as well, guys, this is I've been saying on my podcast as well, and it's refreshing to see that a revert like Aisha herself, mashallah, have the same point of view. And just to conclude on that subject, I think one of the scholar I was listening to, without naming or without referencing, I think they said that the policy of divide and rule, or because of the sake of chanda, charity, or having this is my mosque, this is my this, that plays out culturally because of if you go into the past and how especially a certain group of people, because they lived in a culture like that, they still think from that perspective. Whereas when you go out there in a Western culture, where you go out there where anybody you claim that can join Islam, you have to go out of that little bubble, and you have to see Islam as something anybody can embrace. Either they wear jeans, either they wear shalwar kameez, either they wear Arabic dress. Allah has made Islam for each and every one of us. Islam is a universal deen. It's not only meant for Pakistani, Indian, or these kind of people. So my viewers are listening to that. So this is why I always say to them, okay, do stick with whatever sect you belong, but always study. Listen to the other person's perspective or another sect. You can still stick with yours, but at least gain knowledge. At least with that, you will develop a bit of patience, understanding, and unity among Muslims.
Yeah, 100% I agree, because where would Reverts go? We are from all over the world.
Yeah.
So if we wouldn't be welcomed and we wouldn't get mosque memberships, like majority of people, for example, in Blackburn, we have so many, Gujarati, communities, and it's hard to enter those mosques sometimes, and you have to meet criteria to get a membership. You have to be from, this caste or whatever, and then I will just
That's not Islamic, Aisha.
I will challenge each and every ideology, because they will claim to say on the website, we support Reverts, and I'll say, well, how do you support us? Like, tell me.
Oh my
So
God.
Alhamdulillah, the change is happening, because people like myself, Reverts, go there and challenge them. So then they start to feel and understand, okay, there is a need of support, there is a need of inclusion here. And it's usually those elderly people who have fixed mindsets,
Yes.
and they do not move away from their traditional views, or they think we build this mosque is ours. It's the house of Allah. Keep your doors open.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful thing, and I'm actually really surprised, Aisha, that you had to experience that, because I have seen that even being a Muslim, being an Asian myself, how far, like beyond a certain limit, they take these differences, whereas it's not much, because at the end of the day, as long as you believe in Allah Pak, these small differences doesn't make somebody your enemy or a kafir or anything like that. But even Revert brothers and sisters are facing that, but it's a very good way of challenging that, because that will change the new generation's mindset. And Islam is not for a specific community. Islam is for the whole mankind. So I think that this challenging, and whoever is doing that, mashallah, are doing a great job. Coming back to our platform questions, we went into deeper into, because it's such a rich topic, Aisha. I cannot sometimes prevent myself from talking about that. I think you have answered about in-laws, living with in-laws. We did talk about that. I think a divorced women's stigma is another question, where, or maybe parental control, or some people ask for dowry in some cultures. So how would you shed light on that?
I think with divorcees, we know from prophetic practice and from sunnah practice, our Prophet, peace be upon him, married different women, widows, divorcees, single mothers, not married before. He married all different kind of women, older, younger, so that to show and set the best benchmark and example that everything is possible with correct intentions. So you need to understand that divorcee has chosen her children over herself. Sometimes she has to go through hell on earth to have those children with her. She might be the only one who hasn't given up on those children. It could be a man has left and abandoned her and children, and she didn't give up. And you might be crying, watching on social media and TV what's happening to the children of our ummah in different countries abroad, but you will not accept the children of the sister who never gave up on them.
Mashallah.
So these are the same children of our ummah. And you, as a Muslim man, you're saying you cannot marry her, because why? Most of men, they try to get rid of some extra responsibility, or it could be scary, or they're insecure, or they think I'm not capable, or I don't want to deal with her ex and their dad. You need to build yourself up as a man. You need to really follow the correct sunnah. Be secure in yourself. Heal your traumas, your triggers, and show up for yourself, for those sisters. Allah might have written a divorcee with children for you, and you're just trying to dodge it and avoid it, and you may just end up being single.
Yeah.
No,
that's very true. And like Aisha, you said, do you also think that sometimes having similar circumstances, that let's say if a brother is divorced as well with children, and the women, like, I'm not saying in every case, but do you think that also understanding can be better because similar circumstances?
Understanding is better, but circumstances do not allow it to happen. Because if a brother has children and sister has children, if they're not in the same town, usually children have schools to go to. So it doesn't work unless it would be kind of, part-time marriage, like, just visitation. Even then it's very difficult because you might be dependent on someone else having the children over the weekend, so you can spend time. Blending families is very complicated. So this is why this is even harder, unless location allows and permits that, or someone can relocate so they could live in the same town, which is a lot harder.
I had a question of relocation as well in there, but you said it very.
But I think for sisters, because I kind of focus a lot on brothers because of the coaching that I do for brothers, premarital coaching. However, for sisters, I've noticed that so many sisters will also have issues marrying a brother who is divorced and has a child or children. And he may just have those children every other weekend, and the sister will feel so insecure to be in her feminine energy, embrace the children, not as her own, but just embrace them, just be there. If you love your spouse, appreciate and take certain care or steps, for the people he loves. And this is very strange because women lose feminine energy in that sense. They're so insecure that they think, I'll be very jealous because his ex will be involved. So what? She will be involved. If she's not involved, I would say that's a red flag. If she's involved, that's a good sign. Help him to be good parent. Help them to co-parent very well. Just deal with your triggers and insecurities just different way than men have to deal. People are just too insecure, because what you need to understand, once you have your own children, they will trigger you too. Not necessarily, your stepchildren. Your own children will step on each and every wound that you have ever had. And they will get the best or the worst out of you. So you be ready to do the work on yourself either way. So why don't you just embrace the experience that, that single dad or that single mother could be your means to Jannah, could be early Jannah on this earth as well. You could have an amazing life. If a man can take care of children, why would you not want that man? That's amazing. He probably can cook and clean and does the
help out in every way.
School runs.
Yeah. No, that's very, very, very rightly said over there. And with Aisha, this question of where parents have a lot of control, and let's say if a sister liked someone, the guy came for Rishta, parents rejected because of any reason, the parental control and the dowry system in some cultures. How would you, answer to that one?
I think if you have very good and healthy relationship with your parents, listen to what your parents say. Listen doesn't mean obey. Listen to their point. They may see something you cannot see, and it happens to youth quite a lot. I deal with that all the time, and hence why I'm now projecting and thinking, to work with youth even more as a better prevention, because they don't see many things. They don't have the lived experience and wisdom that parents have. Listen to what they're trying to say. Sit with their comments and see if it makes sense. Whether that could be, a real concern, or that could be just, they want, for example, a son-in-law or daughter-in-law who's a doctor or whatever, which is not maybe reasonable. But if it's something, for example, they'll say, I don't feel he will be able to look after you because of this and that reason. I don't think he is for you because I know you very well, and he seemed to be quite controlling and, will not let you do things and whatever. Take that into account. Doesn't mean you have to do it and stick with it. Sometimes parents will prevent marriages for very silly reasons, because they think that there's someone better out there, or you need to finish,
or maybe financially the other person is more financial. Maybe a sister might like a brother, but the parent would say, no, he's not financially very stable, so go for the one but she might not be happy with him.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes those reasons are, not valid. If young people want to get married, I would say look into it. do not decline it straight away. It's better than actually declining the marriage, rejecting the proposal, and then knowing that they may commit zina after. They will do something that is not pleasing to Allah. So listen to your children if you're a parent. If you are the child who's seeking support and, comments and validation from parents, take it with a lot of criticism as well, and understand you are accountable for your actions. Sometimes your parents may not know what's best for you. Sometimes they could be toxic too. So it's you who got to then assess, can I do this without my family support? Can I do this on my own, or I cannot? If I can convince my family, I should try. So you got to really assess the options. With mahr, it's the same thing. The best is when it's something reasonable, sunnah mahr of Fatima radiallahu anha. Just a fixed amount if it's possible. If a man can afford and it is mutually agreed and he wants to gift more, take it. Right? But if he can't, don't burden him. Don't get him into debt to just secure it. Delay the mahr. If there are very young people who are getting married, delay it. There is no point of it. Okay, of course, I will say, do not make something like he will memorize this surah from the Quran, because it has to be financial mahr. This is the right sunnah, because you cannot return the Quran memorization after. I deal with lots of divorces in our community, and that is not reasonable. Yes, that can be an addition, and it's beautiful, and it could be romantic and moment. However, make it financially stable. I would say for sisters, especially if they're Revert sisters listening to this, you got to be able to support yourself for at least 3 months.
MashaAllah.
If you can support yourself, that is a reasonable mahr. Depending on your expenses, where you live, the lifestyle your husband is promising you, or you're going to have, or the lifestyle you had, that is reasonable. So 3 months of at least basic living, that if you go through divorce, by the time you adjust and maybe could go back to your parents or work or whatever, at least you're stable. That is your security. That's your right.
MashaAllah, that's very beautiful. I think even that meher question you answered was a very important one. Even I forgot about that, and I would cover that in the aspect is that where in some subcontinent, India, Pak subcontinent, there is a dowry system where a girl's father and mother might give some financial help or something. What I'm saying is that whatever parents of either the boy and the girl wants to give from the happiness is fine, but don't, like I said, like you said as well, don't put that sort of a pressure on them either from either side, where I don't know if they are not even the position to give that, but you're putting them into that position, which is astaghfirullah, is not the right way.
Yeah, this is why you delay it. You delay mahr as well. It's fine to delay it so no one goes through hardship. And you do not delay marriage, because that could end up in sin. So don't delay things when there is no need of it.
When no need of it. Honestly, these are so small things where, and this is why Aisha, like I said before in my previous podcast, that it's easier to get a girlfriend and get all of that, and it's difficult to get married because of all these things. People have made it so complicated, whereas they are not. They are actually very easy things to do.
Yes, it is. You don't need to overcomplicate what's straightforward and simple. However, like a man should be generous. If he can afford, it's like non-Muslims would give a diamond ring, which would be maybe 10,000 pounds. So if a man can afford it, or he can save up, or he can be delayed mahr, why not? Why not to value women? You can. And in some communities, they give gold and so on, and other kind of gifts depending on the expectations, like in some Arab countries, they, for example, will buy a house, or they will buy all the assets, and so it really depends on the means of a man. So it's very personal and individual, but don't make it burdensome, but also be generous if you can be.
MashaAllah. And Aisha, another question is one of the last few ones, is that polygamy, if somebody is looking for maybe more than one wife, what's your of course it's going to be circumstantial and all of that, but of course a lot of brothers say that Islamically I'm allowed to do that. How should they approach? Or if a sister is in a position where the husband have come back home and said, I've decided to marry again and she's going to be my second wife, how this topic should be approached?
I think in the UK I haven't seen many successful examples, and especially through my work, if I have men coming to me and saying, I want to marry a second wife, the first thing I do with them, I work on their first marriage. I find what were the reasons that they fall out of love, or what are the cases. So I'll give you one scenario with one of my clients. He said, I want to marry a second wife. And then I started questioning him. And the main issues were that he had issues. She was a revert. And at every argument, he will say to her, I was a virgin when I married you and you weren't. And I said to him, did you not know that you're marrying a revert? Did you not know that whatever past she had, her sins are forgiven? Do you think it's right to rub it in her face at every argument? That was one thing.
That was not a very right thing to say, because, of course, when you're coming from a different culture, it's not going to be the same.
Exactly. And then, like, even if someone has done something in the past, if it's forgiven, we should forgive them too, right? Yeah. Because Allah has forgiven. We shouldn't be constantly bringing that up. This is not healthy. And another issue was that they had 2 disabled children and she was exhausted. So when I asked him, when was the last time you gave her time away that she could be on her own? When was the last time you took care of children or took them out? It was never. And it was marriage about 5 years. So then I said, if you're not going to put that effort and understand your wife, take care of her, take care of children, and be the man that she needs you to be the father that she needs you to be, don't come to me and ask me about second wife, because you will ruin another family. You'll ruin another life. Yeah. So go sort that out and then come back to me once you've done what I told you to do.
MashaAllah.
And he came back and he said, my marriage is beautiful now.
MashaAllah. No, that's beautiful.
Never needed a second wife.
But there's still a question comes in the form that in some countries where the female population is more than a man, and even if every man is given one wife, there will still be left more women, and of course they cannot all be prostitutes or go out there to satisfy their hormonal needs. So in that kind of a scenario, of course, and especially in Arab culture as well, a lot of Arabi people, is such a normal thing in there. I'm not saying in every culture, but in Arab culture, it's such a normal thing that seeing another mother or calling another husband's wife their own mother is a very, very, still up till today in a lot of families, is a very normal thing in Arab culture especially. So maybe not, like you said, I think you said it very rightly, in Britain maybe not the case, but in some other societies or culture it's a very normal thing.
Yes, I had to travel to Saudi Arabia to experience, because like I said, in the UK I have not seen many successful examples. That's not to say there aren't any. That's to say that the people who come to me usually have lots of problems and issues, and I have not just witnessed. When I traveled to Saudi Arabia, I explored how it actually works, the relationship dynamics. And you are right, there are lots of successful cases. Not everyone romanticizes marriage. Some women, they want to be taken care of, and they do not mind being second, third, or fourth wife. And even Emirates was similar situation. Many Emirati women, they are fine now, when a man marries a second wife. They know why they do what they do. They know the role they play and the man plays in their life, and the second or third or fourth wife will play too. So they do have agreements, they have cultural norms that they follow. And yes, like I said, there will be, for example, a wife who lost her husband, so she's a widow and has young children. She will be remarried. And that's expected, and that's given. That is her right, because there's no social system to look after her because she's a widow. There are no universal credit and other benefits. So it's expected by men to marry those women to take care of them.
No, very rightly said.
This is beautiful, and it serves a purpose.
And of course, in some cases, like to be honest, when I went, this is now off topic, but I went to Holland and I saw their family system far stronger than Britain. Whereas I've seen in Britain a lot of single mothers, and family system probably over time has not been the same. But in Holland, it was as compared to UK, the family structure was still very much intact and everything. So it also depends, because at the end of the day, if let's say you are not acceptable to it, if the man walks out, then again both might go to a sin rather than having a respect and accepting maybe a second wife or things like that, depending on what culture and what norms you are living in, mashallah. So I think the way
It is not for everyone, it is not made compulsory for a reason. It is
Ji.
not easy. For a woman who's a widow and she's in desperate need of financial support and spiritual and mental support or whatever it takes, right? She will be more likely to accept a man and enter polygamy than a female who is in the UK,
Yes.
who is confident in herself, can provide for
Single,
herself
young, and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and for her to accept it,
Yeah.
deal with jealousy, it is very difficult.
Very
This is
difficult,
the
very
biggest challenge for a woman. So it's not for everyone. This is why it's not compulsory. So some women have a right to say, like if a man wants to marry and he's insisting to marry second wife, she still has a right to divorce. Because
Yeah.
she can't take that understanding or, jealousy. It's just overpowering. So if she knows herself very well, it is okay to accept that it's not for the sister,
Okay. No, that's a very beautiful answer. Sometime, Aisha, this is a very like a question came to me where some sisters are so restrictive in their search that they expect to find a husband within the 10 miles of their radius. Now, this is just one example where forget about relocation or one country, they don't even want to go out of 10 miles radius or even 5 miles sometimes. Now, I've seen people, of course, as they call it in movies, sometimes to find love you have to cross 7 oceans. Someone would. But how can you be, or some brothers or sisters would be so restrictive in terms of, I mean, I can understand you don't want to move away from family and everything, but don't you think that you're restricting yourself from maybe finding your soulmate because of that?
Of course you do. And I would just say straight to the sisters, open your minds, open your hearts, and open your maps. Honestly, it's not a big deal when you have so many brothers ready to relocate, come to you to just meet you over thousands of miles, travel, fly to just see you. And you limiting and you doing your search within 10 miles radius. Come on, sisters, that could be your potential spouse. You shouldn't miss out. So yes, you have to explore. Yes, the same as with the type.
Yes.
I would say, where is this knowledge coming from? Where is this limiting belief coming from? If you want to stay where you are, just think, well, you might then stay single for the rest of your life.
A lot of people, Aisha, a lot of brothers and sisters, especially sisters, brothers are not like that. They are still very much keen to, but sisters are not allowing them to win their heart or win their mind because, he doesn't have a certain type of a beard or his looks are not the same. He doesn't wear or he doesn't drive a particular car. So they would just reject people only, haven't even had one conversation to even see how beautiful that brother might be.
Yeah, I would say no, you have to give somebody a chance. Yes, you need to, like I said, know your deal breakers, your flexibles and so on. But you've got to focus on the right thing. When you give people chances, you learn something not only about them, but about yourself too. I'm not saying marry someone who's not compatible, whom you're not attracted to. I'm saying give somebody a chance, because that may actually rewire your brain to be attracted to different people. You might be attracted to very toxic people who will keep ghosting you, who will be players, who will not pray, who will pretend to be what they're not. And you will be rejecting people who are not of your type or kind. So there are sometimes opposites that also attract. So it could be, very narcissistic and codependent qualities, very avoidant and anxious people. But it could also be very healthy opposites. So there are different temperaments that we have in Islam too. So it could be very opposite. But you know what? If that person is into self-development, if they know Allah and themselves very well, it could be the best fit. Someone who is fire and someone who is water. Imagine if they balance out, it could be the perfect match. You find comfort in each other. One has more courage, the other one has more peace. And you just come together at the end of the day and you think, you know what, this is Sukoon, this is our house.
It just reminded
seek for someone like you.
It just reminded me of Game of Thrones, which is called the Dance of Ice and Fire, when you were describing ice and water like that. Because I used to see a lot of TV shows like that. I think what you said about non-negotiables for someone, like for example, somebody doesn't pray, that's a very fair non-negotiable for some sisters or brothers, or somebody wants a hijabi or with a beard, or somebody does vape and cigarette or anything like that. That can be a non. So these are all I can understand, but only because they have a certain haircut or a beard or wearing a certain type of a dress, rejecting based on that is, I think, very, very unfair. But coming to the last question.
Pick your battles.
Yeah.
Pick your battles.
Pick your battle. The last question before I end the podcast, Aisha, is the fact that, in your opinion, of course, I'm going to touch upon these topics later on in a more discussion, but I think so far what you have done, mashallah, is quite a lot of content I have. But one of my last question is that, in your opinion, as being a relationship coach, guiding people and helping brothers and sisters out there, either who are married or unmarried, what's an ideal match? What to look for if you are going into of course, personal preferences can be different, but what are the top 5, top 3 things you should definitely look for? Of course, after Islam, having a good knowledge of Islam, which in my opinion is a very important thing to see in them, because if somebody obeys Allah Pak, then, or take the responsibility of Islam and his farais, then he would take the responsibility of his wife and that responsibility of his kids as well. But what are your top 5, or let's say top 3 things of an ideal match you should look for when you're going to look for a spouse?
I would just say, in all aspects of your life, so your spiritual, your mental, your physical health, someone who can meet your energy, someone with whom you can connect. Because we know from science, connection cannot be created and cannot be destroyed. So something that's so unique, that someone has that wow effect, someone that definitely you can click.
Somebody who can swipe you off your feet.
Yeah, with whom not maybe swiping off the feet, that's a bit too much.
No, Aisha, but mashallah, if let's say you meet a person who's in a very short span of time, maybe you think like he's just come out of my dream, like he has everything Islamically, physically, intellectually to stimulate me. And then imagine meeting somebody like that, mashallah.
Yes, so with whom you can also grow, and with whom you can be yourself, true self, whom you don't have to please, don't have to change for, who accepts you for who you are. And the 2 qualities in marriage you have to start looking for and assessing when you're seeking marriage. And nowhere is said love, nowhere said spark and fireworks. It said mercy and compassion, affection towards each other. Once you have those qualities, or you're ready to have, or you start building that connection in the stage when you're assessing someone, that's your person. It shouldn't be anxiety, spark, excitement, lows and highs, and lots of emotions.
These can be the plus points if somebody has, but the main thing, like you said, I think the conclusion I'm coming out of or drawing out of that is the fact that a lot of people, they might ignore the red flags early on because there's a physical attraction, for example. But ultimately, if you're looking for kindness,
brothers in particular,
but if you're looking for, because I think different age has different passion. Maybe somebody in their 20s are looking for, but somebody in their 30s, they're looking for compassion, peace. A lot of brothers I've spoken to, that's the one word a lot of people speak quite a lot, peace. They say that when I want to get married, when I want to come back home, I want that love and peace, and when that is in life, everything you can deal with. You can deal with the most difficult complication in life very, very easily. No anxiety, no depression. Inshallah, Allah Pak wills, everything will be fine. But if that's there, if both brothers and sisters, both people in a relationship have that, it can be an absolute blessing. It's like small heaven on earth, a Jannah.
Yes, we're not seeking love. That's what it is. There are lots of stages of love. That even it gets like that thin line between love and hate, because you love destruction of somebody, and that's in Islam. So how far you can go with love? Love can get so self-absorbed and so toxic. It's not the love that we are seeking. We do not deny it. Love exists. Affection is there. The connection, the growth, everything. But it's mercy. So mercy, compassion, affection towards each other. Your situation, your circumstances. When I do marital counseling, I remind them, this is what she's been through. This is how difficult it is for him. Have mercy towards each other. And they soften, because it's hard for her, it's hard for him. That everyone has lots of issues. But if we have that mercy, you know what? It all just melts. They just hug each other, and then it's all nice and peaceful.
Mashallah.
So look for that. Look for that comfort. Like men say, I don't want any drama. I want peace. I want that sukoon and tranquility. So do women. But if women get that safety feeling, She will not attack a man when he comes home from work with all her issues, because she feels safe. She feels content within herself. She will be in her feminine energy to greet him at the door and hug him, and be soft in her feminine to listen to him. So it works both ways.
MashaAllah. No, that was very beautiful. And I think overall we have covered a lot of questions, a lot of material. It has been so beautiful. And of course, the wisdom and the answers Aisha you shared has been absolutely beautiful. So it was like a small blessing and a barakah to have all that discussion. Of course, I'm going to also mention to my viewers that maybe later on, inshallah, we might be discussing each and every topic in more detail, because we covered a lot of these topics. So inshallah, we might be doing like a whole series of podcasts about that, inshallah. But you will have that link of this Rishta4Marriage on this podcast, and the WhatsApp number as well. If some brothers and sisters or even their parents do not have internet, or or it's a bit complicated for them, send us on WhatsApp. We will register your profiles. Our first aim is, for the first 3 months, is to gather as much data as possible, and then inshallah start matching people, start recommending people. We are doing it for the sake of Allah, and to help the community. And Sister Aisha has joined us, and I will be putting her details into my podcast and my website as well. If anybody requires a personal one-to-one session with Aisha with anything, premarital, after marriage, any sort of consultation, and Aisha, if they come from my reference, please give them a discount, and
Inshallah.
that would be great. And at the same to you as well, inshallah. If anybody comes to you for my platform or any IT services, inshallah, I'll do the same. I think just covering all of that, in the end, I would just say that, for all the people watching, make dua for us. Please let us know what topics you like us to cover in the next podcast. And with all the beautiful wishes and duas, I say that it was a great podcast. And I think this is one of the best podcasts I've ever had. So I would rank it as one of the best, alhamdulillah. And I cannot thank Allah Pak enough, and of course Aisha to join me in this journey. So we'll continue, guys, bringing more content to you, inshallah. Until the next time, it will be assalamu alaikum from me, and Aisha, over to you.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair for having me here. It was such a pleasure, and I'm so grateful to be able to talk about the issues in our Muslim communities, which are very specific, and I think it's our job and duty to spread the awareness and support as many as we can, so we can strengthen our ummah, inshallah.
Inshallah, Aisha, that has been great, and honestly, it was a pleasure. Alhamdulillah. So guys, until the next time, we'll catch you in the next episode. Take care. Bye-bye. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
What are you waiting for? Subscribe!